It has been 6 days of tournament prior to this, and this is now the last day of this week, which might have been collecting dust otherwise. But going into the first game, it is Zoo versus is this Evenlock? I thought I saw that the Warlock got banned, but it turns out it's Shudderwalk that's been banned away for Furyhunter.
Yeah, this is going to be the Even Warlock versus the Odd Rogue, and right now it's already looking like kind of a, I would say this is looking bad for Furyhunter right out the gate, because this is probably one of Furyhunter's worst matchups for the Odd Rogue. The Quest Rogue, his best chance is to try and slide through on this Odd Rogue, as it does have the most favorable position. But even Warlock struggles a lot against Odd Rogue.
Yeah, sorry, I thought it was Zoo for some reason. But yeah, Odd Rogue is definitely favored heavily against the Evenlock, especially when they're on coin, because just being able to have that tempo swing of an immediate answer for one of the big threats in the form of Vilespine Slayer just gives so much tempo to the Odd Rogue.
We can see here, xiaOt has a very powerful start. Does keep that Cold Blood in the opening hand. I do agree with that. Cold Blood is one of the strongest cards in this matchup. Wouldn't be surprised to see a 1-drop come down at this turn, and then potentially, that Argent Squire Cold Blood, and just keep going at it. If I remember correctly, Furyhunter is... most lists nowadays have not been running the copy of Doomsayer, so there isn't too much of a punish from the end. If I look at Furyhunter's lineup here, he actually does have access to one of those Doomsayers. But xiaOt saw Furyhunter full mulligan, so we'll know that, Doomsayer is most likely not in the realm of possibilities.
Yeah. So because Furyhunter is on the defensive here, I wouldn't mind seeing him forego the tap here in favor of something like this Vulgar Homunculus. Not only does it stop a wave of Cold Blood, but it also survives just the possibility of daggering up from xiaOt here. So that is going to make the pressure kind of mitigated for xiaOt. If he goes for 1-drop plus Cold Blood, makes it so that Defile can clear the Cold-Blooded minion up immediately after trades into the Vulgar.
Yeah, as even Warlock, you really want to be trying to fit that life tap in as much as possible. But in a matchup like this, you really can't afford to, especially when you know that Cold Bloods are right around the corner. Just very aggressive plays, like, for instance, a coin Vicious Fledgling could come down, and you really want to make sure you have an answer for that. So it definitely makes sense to get this 2-drop down, especially when Furyhunter can life tap and play a Sun Fury Protector on the follow-up.
Right, so xiaOt, his choice of 1-drop is going to be this Firefly. I'm not too sure how big the argument is between going for Second Squire and Firefly, but yeah, xiaOt immediately going for the top there. I wouldn't hate using the Defile as early as now. It's preventing 6 damage.
Yeah, I think you have to, commit to this Defile here. It does feel very unfortunate that it only clears up 2 of the minions. However, if you just play out the Sun Fury Protector, it gets eaten up by just the dagger and the 1-drop, and this 5/1 just keeps pushing the damage. I think Furyhunter is kind of accepting here that he needs to contest the board instead of trying to use this Defile for its minimal purpose. He may feel as if he needs more value out of it, and he wants to get the Hooked Reaver to its breaking point at 15 life quicker, so it'll take a little bit of damage.
Yeah, I would agree. I think this is a fair play from Furyhunter. It's gonna bait not really bait, of course xiaOt's gonna attack with the Argent Squire, but it's just getting him closer and closer to that Hooked Reaver. He's accepting the fact that, okay, I'm gonna try and expedite this minion, because if I just keep clearing the board every single turn, I'll eventually get burst down by the Odd Rogue, because at some point they're going to be able to stick something. So Furyhunter's trying to make it so that he can have his own threat as soon as possible. The thing is, the Defile on this turn is quite awkward. And if he still doesn't want to Defile, then he doesn't really have a 4-drop other than the Hooked Reaver.
What Furyhunter might also be thinking is that he wanted to save the Defile for 1 turn. That way he could go Defile Sun Fury Protector to try and kind of amount some kind of board state. The issue with that is if you go for that line of play and xiaOt doesn't decide to swing with the dagger face, you don't enable the Hooked Reaver on the following turn. So I think you need to go for a life tap here in order to life tap into the 7/7 on the following turn.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. He forgoes the development of the Sun Fury, which could be useful later on to create some taunt minions, just to guarantee that he will have this Hooked Reaver activation. As for xiaOt, now that he knows that Furyhunter can very easily tap to get to Hooked Reaver, he might just go for the Dagger Face anyway, because it can buff this Hench Clan Thug that he has in hand. He really is just hoping to draw Vile Spine soon, though.
Yeah, he's going to need a Vile Spine for this Hooked Reaver, and we can even see that even after the first one gets answered by potentially Dagger, double Deckhand, and the 1-drop, if xiaOt does go for the 1-drop this turn, that Furyhunter just has another one waiting right around the corner. This is actually looking fairly good for Furyhunter for now. It's just a matter of, does he keep drawing cards he can play in the next couple of turns, or will they be more awkward cards?
I kind of want to see one Deckhand come out as early as now, and yeah, xiaOt's going for it, because you saw Defile already, and even if there's Hellfire, it doesn't clear off the Hench Clan Thug. It's just best to play around the best play from Furyhunter, which is exactly Hooked Reaver, and getting more damage onto the board early will help him just that little bit.
Well, I'm actually a little curious on this play. I think I would have rather seen the Flame Elemental come down, because right now xiaOt doesn't exactly have an answer for the Hooked Reaver if it does come out. His best answer will be putting the Hench Clan Thug and the Deckhand or his face into it. Whereas if he had played the 1-drop, he could go double Deckhand Dagger in and hold on to this Hench Clan Thug and be able to push the damage turn after turn with that. But now he'll have to sacrifice a larger minion since he didn't develop the Flame Elemental. The Flame Elemental, since it doesn't have charge.
So I think by going for it this way, he does actually want to get rid of the Hench Clan Thug. Oh my gosh. Sorry, my thought was, as weird as it sounds, just because he can push more damage immediately with the Deckhand later on if he saves one in hand for some kind of burst potential. But all of that doesn't matter anyway. That was the perfect top deck for xiaOt. And Furyhunter has 0 heal in hand. He has the second Hooked Reaver, but there is so much damage being presented for xiaOt on board.
Oh, and the most that Furyhunter can really do here is play out Hooked Reaver and Doomsayer, but I believe even after that, he is
just GG. Yeah.
That is still game, as the Deckhand is in hand. For Furyhunter, he has to commit to it. We can see the Deckhand's in hand, and xiaOt's going to take this game, but there was a very small chance he could have been left alive at 1 health.
Yeah, I mean, that Vile Spine just came at the perfect moment. That is quite unfortunate for Furyhunter there, but xiaOt, as we did say, is quite favored overall, so nothing unexpected.
And now, since the Auto Rogue did get the win on the Even Warlock, it's looking even worse for Furyhunter.
And honestly, I still feel like Tempo Mage might have been a bigger threat, but Furyhunter is going to start off with this Taunt Druid of his, which has been teched to be a little bit better against aggro. You're running less, 1 Sleepy Dragon, 1 Dragon Hatcher, and you have room for Tar Creeper and Wrath that way.
Yeah, as for Taunt Druids and the way they go, this one is one of the better ones for aggressive matchups. However, I still think, sometimes it doesn't quite have the sustain to get there, as it won't have as many tools for the early game. But then again, all it takes is a Spellstone, all it takes is a Wrath, and being able to clear up a Mana Worm or an Arcanologist, and you can kind of get there in the end.
Yeah, that word sustain, I think that is the biggest problem for Tempo Mage, honestly, after their first wave of minion threats, which is usually, on average, maybe, 4 points of minion damage, unless you get a really good Mana Worm. If that can be cleared, they're heavily reliant on just chucking spells to face, and that often doesn't get there against a deck that just has so much armor. So xiaOt, I think this might be a game which requires Alaneth to finish.
Definitely will. We've seen Alunith drawn up quite a bit during the tournament. We've seen how powerful it is. See xiaOt go for the explosive runes there. Really wants to make sure that this Tar Creeper can't come down because he knows that there is a one-up Tar Creeper in the list, and Tar Creeper is basically the aggro killer. That card is so strong against aggressive decks.
xiaOt with the Cosmic Anomaly off the top has the option to just play it down. I don't hate it at all here because the second Arcanologist looks pretty weak in terms of the curve. Yes, the Cosmic Anomaly can be cleared by many things, Swipe, Spellstone, Wrath, but I feel like as Tempo Mage, there's too many things to play around against Druid. You just have to be as aggressive as possible and hope that your minions stick.
I agree. You kind of have to take those risks, and developing this minion now kind of helps for the future couple of turns. I don't think the Arcanologist plus ping is that strong of a play. xiaOt's going to be really considering it here. Looks like he's just going to opt for that. Maybe, since he has this Shooting Star and he has this Arcane Missiles, he's really hoping to capitalize on that damage later on.
Furyhunter, we see that he would have been able to clear the Cosmic Anomaly if it came out by coining out the Spellstone. But yeah, even then, having saved this Cosmic Anomaly, the Shooting Star doesn't get too much done. Might be that xiaOt just fireballs this Ironwood straight away.
I think he kind of has to. As bad as it feels to fireball just a 3/6, you really have to push damage each and every turn, try and maximize as much damage as possible. And it's not looking too strong for xiaOt right here. He just has a very awkward hand, and these Arcanologists aren't nearly pushing enough damage.
Yeah, and we see that Furyhunter has this double Nourish hand. Counterspell has not had the time to be played by xiaOt, so Furyhunter can very comfortably ramp this turn. Follow it up with some draw. He also has an option, I guess, to just play out a Q, but I really think that you need to take this Nourish while it's available.
Yeah, I could have contested with the Cube, but sometimes, Cube can be stronger later on, especially if your opponent has an explosive trap on the board, explosive runes on the board, as you will be able to, cube one of your taunt minions. Explosive runes will kill the cube, and then you'll get 2 copies of that taunt minion. So there is some counterplay with cube that can be used later on.
xiaOt with the pickup of Mana Worm. It's late, but not too late, I would say. Of course, as Taunt Druid, Furyhunter does not have access to Spreading Plague. So xiaOt can try and develop the Mana Worm and maybe follow it up with either a Secret or the Arcane Intellect. With this many cards in hand, I would prefer to see a Secret. He might be expecting Primordial Drake on the next turn. So Mana Worm and Explosive Runes looks pretty good to me.
Oh, it almost looks as if, xiaOt is going for a very aggressive line of play here. Recognizing that you're right, there is that possibility of Primordial Drake, but I guess he just wants to get as many minions onto the board as possible to try and contest something.
Furyhunter doesn't have a minion that he particularly wants to play, but he has a Spellstone for the Cosmic Anomaly. Can't quite fit in both Swipe and Spellstone this turn. Do you think he has to naturalize this Mana Worm?
As much as it pains me to naturalize to give your opponent cards, I wouldn't be surprised if Furyhunter went for it, because he's about to take quite a bit of damage if he doesn't answer this board state somehow, especially with the Mana Worm there. So I honestly wouldn't be surprised to see Spellstone come out and Naturalize come out as well.
I also think he has to do that. The Mana Worm has so much potential to grow if it's left on the board. And of course, the Cosmic Anomaly is too much of a threat. That one absolutely needs to go with the Spellstone. If you give your opponent 2 more cards that are burn spells, at least they're not dealing repeated damage like the minion Mana Worm would do, and even growing damage.
Definitely a tough call, and it looks like Furyhunter is going to be very resilient here. I think in Furyhunter's mind, he's saying, you know what, I would rather not give xiaOt burn spells, because Furyhunter's next turn is most likely going to be something like Hadronox Naturalize,
Wow.
and
Really
that's a strong draw. Yeah.
So Furyhunter's list does play Ultimate Infestation, so xiaOt might have a mind to go for Counterspell over Explosive Runes here. Definitely the Kirintor is coming down with one of those secrets. Counterspell most of the time will just prevent a coin, but if you can prevent coin UI for one turn, I think with this kind of board state, you should be winning most of the time. So I wouldn't be surprised to see xiaOt go for that. The best individual minion that Furyhunter could play is the Sleepy Dragon here, though, which does eat up a lot of damage. So there's also a strong argument for this Explosive Ruins.
It's definitely a tough call. xiaOt will have seen that Furyhunter waited quite some time on his turn before he hero power. Maybe has the read that there is the Hadronox coin naturalize around the corner. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the counterspell here, as I think that's, one of the main ways you lose this game right now is that Hadronox play. But it looks like he says, you know what? You need to have the Hadronox. Might as well, play that out.
The Hadronox only has one Ironwood Golem behind it, right?
It has Tar Creeper as well.
Oh.
And with both of those minions, you can then proceed to start going Witching Hour Cube and try and put enough pressure up on the board in order to end the game that way. Because right now, just clearing the board isn't enough. You need to put on pressure or you give xiaOt too much time.
So, I guess Furyhunter would decide to go for a full board clearance. Not entirely full. Would swipe Wrath, naturalize, and hero power. I think you can get rid of everything.
Yeah, I think with the draw of the Wrath, it changes this play up quite a bit. Furyhunter is probably considering whether he wants to Wrath for 1 onto the Sorcerer's Apprentice and then swipe. Yeah. Because if he does that, he gets another draw towards something like a Spellstone. So if he hits the Spellstone, he can clear up more of the board.
He also probably can't afford to use the double naturalize. You might feel safe enough to just leave up these 2/2s. Wants to give xiaOt as little draw as possible, but just the one naturalize could be enough to get him there soon. Of course, xiaOt had to use one fireball already.
This is not looking good for Furyhunter right now, as he does not have nearly enough taunt minions, and there is just burn from xiaOt's side of the hand.
Yeah, I believe the turn starts with Sorcerer's Apprentice, because xiaOt is 2 damage off, including the ping. So you can go Sorcerers and Arcane Intellect, find something better. I'd like to see him fit in the Counterspell this turn, maybe save those Frostbolts in hand.
Definitely, especially because there is still another Cosmic Anomaly, and the draw of Cosmic Anomaly would mean these could potentially be lethal. But with that Cinder Storm, that is going to be lethal damage, and xiaOt is going to go up to a quick 2-0 over Furyhunter.
Quick indeed. I don't think we can overstate that at all. Tempo Mage is fast and furious, and it didn't even get the Mana Worm on one start. Hunter over the Tempo Mage, but either way, those decks are definitely beating up on this lineup. So Furyhunter gonna go for his best matchup first, which is this even lock into the zoo from xiaOt. This is one of the matchups where you don't necessarily want to keep Mountain Giant.
Yeah, it's not a matchup you necessarily want to keep it, but being on coin, there's definitely some argument for keeping it. To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if Furyhunter does, as you're not going to be playing too many minions in the early game anyways, and a way you win this matchup is by clearing the board while having a threat on the board. So if you don't have that threat, but you're constantly clearing the board, sometimes it's not enough. I can't stress how important it is as a control deck to not only have a proactive play, but also a reactive play. So you need both coupled together. So I like to keep it the Giant, especially being on the coin.
Fair enough. And Furyhunter has also kept the Spellstone. Definitely agree with that one. And the Defile, while it might not seem that good on its own, paired with a Hellfire can get the even lock out of some life-threatening situations. As for xiaOt, the hand looks really weak here. That's awful. It's looking like the next turn will have to be tap as well most of the time. If the next 2 cards are exactly a healing card, and or if it's like Bold Librarian into healing card, that would be the best. But okay, he can at least play Happy Ghoul next turn.
And I see Furyhunter just constantly tapping. Could have played a 2-drop there, but really wants to get this Giant down next turn, and that is probably the next best couple of draws. We'll be able to play out Voodoo Doctor, Happy Ghoul, that is a 5/5 because it is buffed off Soul Infusion.
Yep.
And Prince Keliseth. I don't think that turn gets any better.
Yeah, and Furyhunter feels like he... Okay, yeah, the Giant just does seem better here. Like, the Defile was only clearing up 2 of these minions. Next turn, Furyhunter can go for Defile and possibly also be able to clear up the Happy Ghoul because of this early Giant development. And you see the reasoning for keeping it.
What is it with Prince Keleseth getting played and then the next draw is Chain Gang? I feel like that's just a common trend this tournament.
I don't know, but these players, these aggro players, have the heart of the cards with them, it seems like. So xiaOt can play that pretty happily, and I'd like to see him trade away the 2-1 into the Giant. I'm just not sure if you also trade the Keleseth. I guess trading away the Keleseth is better against Hellfire, but I'd like to see that push phase along with the Happy Ghoul.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's, you know... I guess you would have to go for the trade on the 2-1 to really play around that Defile. You really can't risk losing the game to that, because right now xiaOt is in a very strong position. So as long as he gets rid of this 2-1 and make sure Defile is not an out, especially because Sun Fury Protector Defile is a very powerful punish, as it will be able to clear the entire board while leaving Furyhunter with a Giant.
Yeah, this is looking real dicey. Furyhunter can go for a value trade and heal up his Giant with the Shroom Brewer, but that's giving up 1 piece of heal for himself, his own face later on. But I do think that he cannot afford to be healing his own face here while the board is still such a massive problem. And in that case, Twilight Drake does technically provide more total health stats. It's 10 as opposed to 8 from the Shroom Brewer. So I can definitely see where he's coming from.
Yeah, xiaOt has to be conscious of, you know, how he plays around these AoEs. And Furyhunter, this is what I'm talking about. I do think, you know, Furyhunter isn't in the greatest of positions right now, but I like how aggressive he's playing, understanding that, hey, you know what, if xiaOt's got the burn, he's got the burn. I'm just going to go ahead and play to my game plan, and eventually I'll be able to clear up this board and then push my own damage, because Furyhunter will be able to push tons and tons of damage with his Twilight Drake Giant if he can clear the board after xiaOt develops it.
Unfortunately for him, xiaOt has the option to play down the Despicable and trade away his Keleseth into the Giant, isolate that Twilight Drake, push another 8 points of damage to the face. And the biggest scare for him there, I guess, would be to play Hooked Reaver. Even then, he has so much damage on board. Oh my gosh, off the top. Okay. Well, Hooked Reaver coin Sun Fury. That's my bad. I don't think that xiaOt can actually push through all of that very comfortably.
Yeah, I'm trying to see how xiaOt really pushes through this. There is some potential for also just coining out, say, the Acidic Swamp Ooze or the Vulgar Homunculus, because you don't necessarily need to commit to Sun Fury just yet. You may want to play Sun Fury on a future turn, and maybe getting the Spellstone upgraded this turn in order to play it next turn might be more beneficial.
Yeah, I can see the argument for Vulgar Homunculus over Ooze. I think that having those 2 upgraded Spellstones will definitely help him clear up the next board from xiaOt. And xiaOt without Fungalmancer, without Soulfire, it's looking pretty difficult for him here.
Yeah, from xiaOt's side, just has that Despicable Dreadlord he just drew. There's not really much that, you know... I'm just trying to see currently what he can really do about this, but that draw from Furyhunter in that Hooked Reaver is really going to push him over this game, and is the draw he needed.
Yeah. xiaOt whiffs on the Fungalmancer, whiffs on the Soulfire, so he's going to have to take some painful trades here if he wants to clear up the Hooked Reaver, but I don't think he'll be doing that. Probably just developing the second Dreadlord, and well, actually, second Dreadlord, then trade in your Happy Ghoul is pretty okay, and then you can use the Dreadlord to clear the Vulgar Homunculus. You can even fit in the Voidwalker to make sure that the Twilight Drake doesn't clear one of the Despicable Dreadlords.
Yeah, that second Dreadlord was actually a blessing in disguise, as it will allow the Hooked Reaver to die without too much repercussions. I mean, 2 Despicable Dreadlords on the board right now, just cleaning up some of the minions is very strong for xiaOt. As we can see here, you know, Furyhunter will have access to potentially a Defile line of play if he wants to go for it. Not sure if he needs to do that quite yet. Could just Spellstone away the 4/5 Dreadlord, develop an Ooze, and start to push a little bit of damage.
Do you think Spellstone looks pretty necessary here?
I definitely think so. I think you had to Spellstone some kind of minion there. You can't really let this get too out of hand. And xiaOt is kind of whiffing on his next couple of draws. The crazy thing is, even with Prince Kaliseth and that insane start, this is a pretty bad matchup overall for the Zulok, as even Warlock just has so many tools to kind of fight back. And the way Furyhunter played it made sure he, had a condition to win on. If he had just played very reactively and wasn't playing as aggressively as he did, I don't know if he'd be in the same spot that he is now.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy that he's so far ahead even without the use of Hellfire. Usually that's the card that is so difficult for Zoo to deal with, but Furyhunter put himself in a position where just one turn of developing your giant, sure, you take kind of 8 damage that turn, but you invest that 8 points of your health to make sure that you can have the board state from that point onward, and it's paying off from here. xiaOt fails to get some bigger threat off the top of his deck. Second Chain Gang might have made a difference, but just playing out Ooze and Blood Knight here doesn't seem like too much. Of course, you can buff the Blood Knight. But yeah, second Spellstone from Furyhunter will be very difficult for xiaOt to deal with.
Yeah, I think xiaOt really has to rely on trying to draw some kind of burn off of the top. But as we can see, with that Spellstone in hand, it's going to mean that, even with a little bit of burn, with that Leroy that xiaOt has packing inside of his list, it may just not be enough.
Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the board just looks so clean for a Defile. Not saying it's necessarily the play, because Furyhunter might want to go for something that preserves his own board. But I don't think he can do that.
I really like first seeing the next card and defying a Hooked Reaver. I think that's a very strong play, as it allows you to push damage. You get a perfect Defile, you have a second Defile, and then you can develop a 7/7 behind it.
Yeah. Sorry, you're getting a little bit robotic there, Dr. J. I don't know if it's on my end or yours, but yeah, I do agree with the Defile. And also getting the second Hooked Reaver off the top, this just makes the turn perfect for Furyhunter.
Am I still robotic, Gia? Am I still a robot right now?
Yeah, better. Not so misread anymore. Okay. On my end, I think the stream is lagging a little bit. Okay. Discord, come on, work with us here. All right, so Leroy is the draw off the top for xiaOt. That points of burst could come in handy, but I don't think Furyhunter is going to be, he's not going to be taking risks, right? He has so much heal in hand that Leroy is not going to get there, even if xiaOt finds a way to clear off this Hooked Reaver. If he just plays out 2 Flame Imps, he's getting himself very close to a counter-lethal from Furyhunter. Just 1 Hellfire, in fact.
If you're xiaOt in this situation, I think you kind of have to take that risk, though. I don't think you really can afford to Leroy into this minion, give up your own board, and just let Furyhunter dictate the trades. I think, although it's very rough, you just have to go for it. Just play out both these Flame Imps and say, you know what, you don't have Hellfire.
Yeah, he's not winning otherwise, so there you go. Furyhunter, even if he doesn't get the lethal off the top here, has a really good response with Spellstone. Spellstone, a Flame Imp, Shroom Brewer your face, hit face with your Hooked Reaver.
Ooh, it appears as if Furyhunter has different plans, wants to just, get rid of Soulfire outs and push this damage as quickly as possible. I don't think this gets punished by anything. Maybe Furyhunter's just thinking that the only way he really loses this game is if he doesn't develop some kind of board here. There was that potential for Spellstone, push face, and Shroom Brewer back up the face, like you said. But maybe Furyhunter felt that was too weak to something as crazy as Soulfire tap, Soulfire the other minion, and then have the board.
Yeah, He was just considering every possible out there, I guess. And xiaOt has managed to survive another day. No, never mind. There's a Hellfire.
Just kidding.
Furyhunter finally puts a win onto the board, but
good against control.
That's right, and it will be that Druid going first. So this looks like a good hand for Taunt Druid. I've seen it. Zoo, double ramp, Tar Creeper. This is the very reason you include Tar Creeper in the deck, even though in other matchups it really clunks up your pool of taunts. But as for xiaOt, he has this Fungal Mancer on coin. I expect that he would keep it this time, even though it is in the leftmost slot in his hand.
Yeah, Fungal Mancer is one of the strongest cards in this matchup, and then having that Happy Ghoul, Kobold Librarian being able to draw through.
Wow, is that a
it almost appeared. Yeah, he says, you know what? I like this hand. I'm just going to go ahead and full keep it. And I mean, I can't really blame him too much. It's a pretty powerful hand, and especially with the, Soul Infusion, not the most impactful draw, but will be strong later on if he can get that Fungal Mancer down and potentially hit a more powerful minion.
So I imagine Furyhunter is very worried to see 4 cards kept in the hand. As for xiaOt, though, surprisingly, none of those 4 cards are Keleseth. I actually wasn't too sure about keeping the Voidwalker here, for example. It's kind of a low-impact one-drop that you'd rather have in aggressive matchups, so it can defend your other minions. It does make sense that he starts with it over the Kobold Librarian, though, because in the case that Furyhunter doesn't have Wild Growth, he'd be able to just hero power down the Kobold Librarian.
Makes sense. And now we're about to see why Tar Creeper is in the deck list. As you can see, Tar Creeper puts in a lot of work. There could be potential for Furyhunter to go for another play now that he's drawn that Branching Paths. I think the initial play was that Tar Creeper, but with Branching Paths, he can go ahead and draw 2, because he really does need to find that Nourish as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Although it's not looking too bad for him. Next turn, he can go Wild Growth, stall 1 more turn, and then he can play Lich King. But in the meantime, xiaOt has something really powerful. He can go double 3 drops this turn into coin Fungal Mancer. And of course, you can't stop saying Taunt Druid doesn't have Spreading Plague. So there's no real punish for going very wide onto the board.
Yeah, this is looking very good for xiaOt right now. Even has access to coin Fungal Mancer on the following turn. That way he can keep pushing that damage. And even after that, has the Leroy Jenkins to try and end this game as quickly as possible. Furyhunter does not find that Nourish with the draw 2 he was looking for. So he's going to have to try and ramp up just a little bit with this Wild Growth, maybe play that Tar Creeper in order to try and soak up some damage. It's not looking too good for him right now.
Yeah. I think there was an alternative play of maybe going for Swipe this turn and then follow it up with Wild Growth and Tar Creeper so that your Lich King... the Lich King comes on the same turn, but at least you get to swipe and mitigate damage immediately, just because ramping to 7 does to me here.
Yeah, definitely a close call indeed. But now we can see this Fungal Mancer coming down, taking a value trade and pushing some damage. This is not looking good for Furyhunter.
Yeah, really looks bad. I don't know. Okay, so there's Swipe and Spellstone that can deal a little bit of work. I think he can still survive until the Lich King turn, from what he can see. He might not feel the need to clear too many things, but we can see that xiaOt has this Leroy to push for potential lethal, so Furyhunter has to respect this.
Yeah, Furyhunter just he is very frustrated right now. You can see him just kind of go, "What is this? Like, this is insane." And I mean, you can't blame him. That was a very strong keep from xiaOt, and he's getting rewarded for it in spades and has that Leroy to end this game. I think the most that Furyhunter can really do is swipe off the Fungal Mancer, Spellstone that Fungal Enchanter, and then just hero power and hope to live for the next couple of turns.
I guess there's also an option of going for Ironwood Golem over Swipe. I think the Spellstone definitely needs to go onto the 5-2 in some capacity, but the Swipe is only removing 4 points of damage, whereas technically the Ironwood Golem is removing 6. Okay, yeah. So he decides to go for it this way, which will... Okay. Yeah. For some reason, I thought that he actually Spellstone the Voidwalker and then cleared the Fungal Enchanter just so he would remove 2 minions, but that is just way too much damage.
Oh, way too much damage indeed. And right now, xiaOt may be thinking about trying to put his opponent to... he can't put him quite to 4 yet. I would say if he could put Furyhunter to 4, it might be worth just going for the Leroy here. But I don't think you can quite do that just yet. I'd rather see minions get developed onto the board. But xiaOt is really thinking about it right now. He is thinking about just jamming this Leroy.
Yeah, it's just so scary into Primordial Drake. So I think he's going to take the time to heal up that Kobold Librarian and possibly put down... Oh, there's just no good way to play around Primordial Drake here, huh?
No, I think this is the best way. But it looks like xiaOt may even just hold on to that Flame Imp, which kind of gets... I don't even think it gets punished by the Lich King. I think xiaOt's thinking about that right now, about whether he can beat Primordial Drake. Because if Lich King comes down, he still has lethal through the Lich King with the Leroy Soulfire.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, but that draw right there.
So that was the Ironwood Golem. Gets him some more stall time, but it is just stall unless he can pick up an immediate proc for the Hadronox, which is naturalized. So stall this turn, Lich King stall again. And then if you have drawn the naturalized by that point, he might just be able to pull this back.
I mean, to be honest, he may be able to just tempo out the Hadronox depending on how this next turn goes. As we can see from xiaOt, he doesn't have the strongest of starts, and it also depends on what Furyhunter draws for turn. If he draws something like potentially a Primordial Drake or the Sleepy Dragon or even Master Oakheart, this game could just change immediately.
So xiaOt going to clear off the whole board with the help of this Despicable Dreadlord, but he will have to trade off all his attacking minions this turn. He still has 10 burst from hand, though. If I am Furyhunter, I am not sure that I have the luxury to just tempo out the Hadronox here, because even if you play it that turn, there's no guarantee that it dies the next turn. Nothing on board has enough attack, so definitely like the Lich King here. xiaOt, just a little bit... Oh, Soul Infusion onto Leroy! That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty strong, but unfortunately does not have quite that little bit of damage left. And yeah, he really wants to get this Hadronox tempoed onto the board immediately, but didn't have the luxury to do it that turn. May have to be forced to do it next turn, depending on what he draws.
I do like the Soul Infusion, Leroy. It's basically, yeah, you're spending the whole turn clearing the Lich King, but with the Despicable Dreadlord, at least the Whelps won't be a problem. He can push 8 this turn. Just has to dodge that naturalized, dodge bigger taunts again. Furyhunter is on 1 turn to draw something good. And I think there is a little bit of a problem with the Spectator.
Yeah, I think so as well. So we're going to have to live this game through Furyhunter's facial expressions.
Yes.
As we're not sure what he drew.
There we go.
There we go. And that's just game. xiaOt is going to take it 3-1 over Furyhunter. And, it was looking like Furyhunter had a chance there. But unfortunately,